I think this also first and second round confirmed I either want to be at the top of the draft, get one of those big three, or be at the bottom draft and get two of those top 14 guys. Because I think in the middle of round 2, the guys that are available there in the middle are still kind of the same type of guys that are there at the end. So if you have David Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, Kevin's team, love the start. We probably shouldn't let him die in the basement if he can draft teams like that. But I just think the talent, it's like clearly drops off around pick 14 to a tier that doesn't really level out or get much different until the third round even. So the level of talent you're getting at the end of round 2 is just as good as the talent you're getting right in the middle. So I don't like picking in the middle. I'm really hoping I get a top 3 or a bottom 3 pick.
I agree with you completely. And I actually really enjoyed doing this draft because I don't think I drafted particularly well. And so this has been a great practice thing for me. I'm getting to learn quite a lot by doing this thing as early as we did. All right, let's move on. I like that those takes. Let's move on to round number 2. Yep. And see what you thought about those picks. And because this is where things started getting a little bit tricky. So obviously
there's a few big lessons to learn here. Yeah,
we're doing snake draft and we're going back up. So this pick from Red Soccer 45, he picked Jay Ajayi last round. He comes around in the snake and picks Devontae Freeman. Not a bad RB stack there, but we'll see. But he's not going to pick again for receivers for another 24 picks. So this will be interesting. We got DeMarco Murray. What a steal at pick 14 for D. Hoff. To me, that salvages the Jordy Nelson pick because I didn't love that pick. But with Murray, oh, absolutely. But with Murray, sure. Crawl with another solid pick, Mike Thomas to go along with Melvin Gordon. Then we get the Roto Dragon who picked AJ Green in the first one and then goes Des Bryant with his 16th pick. Don't love it. I did something similar, but I don't love it. Then we get T.Y. Hilton from CJ. So he goes McCoy and Hilton. We'll see. The Wolf picks Lamar Miller to go along with Mike Evans. Now, just full disclosure, I was holding out for Miller. I thought I would probably get him. I didn't. That made me, pick a little strangely. I thought Miller was a great pick there. Number 19, Mark Ingram from Jimbo Slice. This, in my opinion, was one of the worst picks of the entire, certainly of the first 2 rounds. And Jimbo's the reigning RSJ champion. So what are we going to say? But I thought that was a terrible pick. Then I came back with pick 20, picked Demaryius Thomas. I think he was probably the best player on the board. I'm not sure if I would have taken a running back if I had it to do over. I certainly wanted to take a running back and was looking. I did not like who was around at that point. I thought I could get the guy I wanted in round 3 once I had lost Miller. Number 21, Brandon Cooks from Keegs. 22, Aaron Rodgers. Seamus stacking Julio Jones with Aaron Rodgers. The Wolves I'm watching him in the bottom corner of my screen, just like, there's a he looks uncomfortable. Number 23, David Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, Kevin the intern doing great in my opinion. And then Jordan Reed from Team Chubbs to go along with Le'Veon Bell. Don't love that pick either, but I respect it. Wolf, let's real quick break those down. What do you love?
Alrighty, so I think we don't want to spend too much time on the horrendousness that was Mark Ingram because that was just completely bonehead. I don't know if Jimbo didn't realize Adrian Peterson was there and he's going to steal all the touchdowns or what was going on there. But Mark Ingram, absolutely horrendous pick. Jimbo, you're better than that. You're the defending champion. I know you've already kind of repented for those sins on the board and said, I don't know what I was doing. I'm sorry. But I don't know if enough apologies are going to ever make up for that. Disgusting, horrible, worst pick of the draft so far. But following closely behind is Seamus with Rodgers. That is just horrendous. A quarterback that early. That's one of the main lessons and main takeaways of this that I want everyone to come away with is never, ever, ever go quarterback that early, especially not round 2. Maybe at the end of round 3 or towards the end of 4. I wouldn't personally.
I wouldn't touch a quarterback in round 3.
There's just one so much depth of the position, especially because you only start 1. So you're telling me you got to find one of 12 guys to start. There's about 15 or 16 quarterbacks in the league that I'd be okay with as my fantasy quarterback. So that means I could probably wait till around 10, 11, 12 until I really can draft my starter if I want to. So you got this great depth, and then it's about opportunity cost. You're costing yourself these great running backs and great receivers that are still available that get just way less easy to predict as the rounds go on. So the opportunity cost combined with the depth of the position makes quarterback just an absolutely disgusting and horrible pick this early.
I mean, case in point, I got Derek Carr in the RSJ league and in my other big league that I'm in, the 9th round in one of those leagues and the 10th round in the other league.
Exactly, right? dependable QB1 all year in the 10th round. Whereas, if I could pick a receiver right now or a running back in round 2 and then Derek Carr in the 10th, I guarantee you whatever running back and receiver you pick in the 10th to go with Aaron Rodgers, Seamus, is not going to outscore the running back receiver I get round 2 and the quarterback round 10. That's how I always try to paint the picture for people to realize it, because it just still doesn't sink into people. Quarterback that early is just completely boneheaded. Horrible pick to go with a first round horrible pick. Seamus is obviously my least favorite team of the draft so far. He needs some fancy consulting. We're going to actually run a series this summer, I believe, where we consulted him last year and won this guy a league. So let me remind you, this guy that just picked Rodgers and Julio in the first 2 rounds, we won him a league. So just keep that in mind. We can win you a league if we can win this guy a league.
So picks that I'm assuming that you love, Wolf. I'm gonna guess. So I'm gonna assume. No, I don't mind. I'm gonna assume you love the DeMarco Murray pick, although I assume it also bothers you because you think he went way too late. But I'm assuming you love DeMarco Murray at 14. You love Mike Thomas at 15, I would imagine, especially stacked with Gordon. And I would imagine that you probably liked your Lamar Miller pick pretty much, because I also thought that was a good pick. I was looking for that. And I would imagine you liked DeAndre Hopkins at 23.
I think you nailed. You know me. We talked about enough of these football podcasts. I think you really got me down to a science at this point. But absolutely, I thought DeMarco was a steal there. Now we're going to talk about some fantasy football the football fantasies in a little, not this episode, maybe in a couple ones. But there is some rumors starting to come out that the Titans offensive coordinator wants to get Henry a little bit more involved, find him ways to get him touches. So I am not as ecstatic about that pick. I still think at that pick,
at 14, it's still a great pick.
Still a great pick. I think that was an absolute steal. And I think even with this news, I still think you got to go DeMarco over Devonta. Me and Red Sox are still having a debate on Slack over this. So one, I love that. I love that he's that passionate. He's still going at it with me about this. But I still think DeMarco's the guy, because you're locking up that backfield for a first or now early second in an 8th or 9th rounder. Whereas if you're doing Atlanta, you're going first and 4th or 5th to get Coleman and Freeman. So I think the price for the exotic smash mouth, which is just as a running back friendly scheme, is way better for admission than the Atlanta one. But I love the DeMarco pick. Like you said, Michael Thomas, they're grooming him for what they're saying is going to be a Julio Jones role now. They don't usually do that with the Saints. They don't usually have target hogs, target monsters. But right now, with Brandon Cooks departing, if they're going to breed him for a Julio Jones role with Drew Brees as his quarterback, he might have the most upside of any receiver. I mean, if any of these second-round guys are going to leap into top 3, it's going to be Mike Thomas. So I do really like Kroll pairing up Melvin Gordon and Michael Thomas there. And then I think Hopkins, now with Watson there, the QB upgrade, to go with David Johnson, you nailed it on the head. I think all 3 of those teams really did what I was talking about, that running back receiver combination to perfection. I think mine isn't bad. I like the Mike Evans. I think Lamar Miller has just as much 3-down potential as a lot of those first-round guys, but has left a bad taste in owner's mouth, so now he's going in round 2. I think with Deshaun Watson there, the cutback lanes might be a little bit wider open. They'll be in the red zone more, so he can improve on his 5 TDs. But I still, if I could go back and have Jay Ajayi and DeAndre Hopkins there, I might do something like that. I'm actually surprised you passed up on Hopkins for Demaryius Thomas.
I struggled with it. And, if it had been the real draft, I probably would have picked Hopkins. I'm not going to lie to you. I went with who I thought was the best guy on the board. I was trying to go by the formula. I was trying to, go by guys that we've talked about in football fantasies. Obviously we're still months away from the season. I did think about DeAndre Hopkins. But let's talk about my pick for a second, because I picked Demaryius Thomas, who is certainly a reasonable guy to take at that pick. I think I was the 20th pick overall there. But I already had a receiver. I had, probably the best receiver in the game, Antonio Brown. I pair him with Demaryius Thomas. I really wanted a running back. Like I said, I wanted Lamar Miller, but I looked at the running backs that were available, and I just did not, I really struggled with it. I really had a much harder time making this pick than I thought I would. I didn't want to end up blowing a pick on a running back I didn't believe in, overpaying, and then passing on a guy like Demaryius Thomas, who I thought was going to have a big year. I thought that I could get the running back that I wanted in the 3rd round, and I was correct. Spoiler alert, because we haven't talked about the 3rd round yet. But I did get the guy I wanted. I picked Isaiah Crowell, who I actually really like, and I think it has a lot of upside. So, but let's take that off the table. So I got Demaryius Thomas, and I got Antonio Brown. What do you think of that?
I think similar, you and Roto Dragon took the same strategy, loading up on two receivers, which I don't hate. I still think the teams that have the balance of a running back and a receiver right now are in better shape or have better foundations. But two receivers who you're getting some production from with AJ Green and Dez, and then with you got Antonio Brown, the top receiver in the game, Demaryius Thomas, who we've featured multiple times on the Football Fantasies, back with Mike McCoy, that screen receiver game that he's thrived in.
We've heard many times Seamus say that he's dominant.
Absolutely. So I don't hate it. I think I personally would have rather had DeAndre Hopkins if I was going receiver there. Maybe Brandon Cooks brings a little more upside to the table. But if I was going to do your pick over, I'm liking Leonard Fournette a lot. And I know it's Jacksonville, and maybe. I know the line might not be great there, but they're already saying he's impressing as a pass catcher. So he's got the 3-down horse roll. I love him as a talent. So if you were like you were saying, you were looking at running backs and weren't sure who to go, he would have been my guy personally.
I thought about him. He was the guy that I didn't want to use that pick on. Like, I thought I could get Crowell. I like Crowell as much or more than Fournette, and I thought I could get Crowell in the 3rd round. Now, I thought I could get Miller in the 2nd round. I got burned. If I'd gotten burned, then I probably would have had to jump on. I forget who else was there. I might have to gone Christian McCaffrey, something like that. Then I'm really starting to gamble at the running back position. As it is, I think I did get a pretty good running back to go along with 2 pretty good receivers. We'll see what happens. Last question about the 2nd round that I have for you.
Yes.
Let's talk about Team Chubb's pick. He started with Le'Veon Bell. He comes back with Jordan Reed with the last pick of the 2nd round. I didn't like this pick, but I'm interested to know what you thought.
So this is the deal with Team Chubbs is like, one, I don't even hate his team because I like both Le'Veon and I like Jordan Reed. So I'm not sitting here saying I hate that team, but I think the 2 guys he passed up on for both of those guys is completely moronic. One, David Johnson, we already hit upon, and then you're really taking Jordan Reed over Rob Gronkowski. I think that's just absolutely disgusting and embarrassing. It's one thing if you couldn't justify Travis Kelce, but I'm just saying the only thing he has is health on his side. Kelce doesn't get hurt. If you're saying, I had to pass up on Gronk because he misses a lot of time, fine. But you can't then take Jordan Reed, who misses just as much time, if not more, throughout his career, just as big of an injury concern, but doesn't have as high of a ceiling. Close. I think they're both in a tier by themselves because their ceilings are so high. And I like Jordan Reed with the 2 receivers gone this year. The offense is going to run through him. We've heard it from beat writers. We've heard it from Jay Gruden himself. He's going to be a target hog, but you don't pass up on Gronk for any other tight end ever. He's just too good. He's too much of an edge. Even last year, Reed had a great points per game average, and Gronk still averaged 4 more points per game than him, paced the position by 4 points, 18 points a game. You look at the 5 games Gronk played with Brady, the 4 games he had with Brady, 5 catches, 109 yards, 7 catches, 162, a TD, 4 catches, 93, a TD, 5 catches, 109, a TD. It was the cheat code that he's always been. He's a receiver 1, just the best bet for a TD in the league every single week as a receiving threat. There's no one better than that. He's just a cheat code at the position. So if you wanted a tight end, you had to have gone Gronk there. I think the fact that Gronk's still on the board going into round 3 is an absolute joke, and I think everyone's going to regret passing up on him. It's going to be interesting to see how far he falls in round 3 because, again, you can't. It's not that I don't like Reed. I actually really like Reed. I'm higher on him than most experts, but to pass up on Gronk for him is just completely boneheaded. So don't make that mistake if you're listening. Gronk has to be the first tight end, regardless of injury concerns. Easy number 1 pick for tight ends.